Critical race theory, what is it?
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Welcome into our weekend edition of Dan Yorke State of Mind. I am he. I think that's fairly evident. It's great to have you aboard. Thank you very much for tuning in. Program note as we start, this is a conversation as I am having it that was actually recorded a couple of weeks ago. You know how summertime is, vacations and everything else. So we are not going to make any commentary on current events within the immediate news cycle. But the conversation we're going to have tonight, I think, is hardly going to be remedied in a couple of weeks in America and in the region here. It's so great to have you aboard. I'll give you a little wink on this. You've seen the show, if you're a regular viewer, a couple of times now in the studio, but as we record this, it's actually my first time back in the studio, not Zooming. And I'm so glad because the in-depth conversation we need to have with my guest here this evening is an important one and requires the human touch. My friend Ricardo Pitts-Wiley is my guest this evening. And originally I was going to, well, he's introduced a little early here, but there you are. Good to see you.
Good to be
but there's a headline here that was the original goal of the conversation, because I've been trying to get Ricardo's take on the sentencing, which seemed to, I don't know if the word is satisfy, but certainly mitigate any kind of protest that reflected the heinous crime itself. So I want to, that was my original goal when I invited my friend Ricardo Pitts-Wiley here to have this discussion. So let's spend 30 seconds to a minute or whatever you think is appropriate on how that saga has at least meted out to this point. And then I want to talk, and then Ricardo came in and said, hey, you want to talk about this critical race theory? I'm like, yes, because again, as we speak 2 weeks ago, the American Federation of Teachers put out a press release kind of defending it. My point of view is a little bit more subtle. I know my friend's conversation on this is going to be more direct. Tell me about the Chauvin verdict and whether or not the world ought to be satisfied by it. By the way, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here,
Lost
Dan.
a few pounds.
Yeah.
Miss Magic Theater is still working well. You got to check it out. It's in Pawtucket. It's online for all the information. You got the performances and the historical work, by the way, that you guys do can't be missed. So tell me what you think about what happened there.
Well, I wasn't surprised by the sentencing guidelines, the sentence, you know, but what it really highlights, though, is had not a little girl caught the whole incident on a cell phone, there's a good chance Derek Chauvin would have walked. There is the problem, that a policeman still can commit a crime against a citizen and be exonerated. So sometimes you get a verdict like that and you think, oh, everything's better, everything's good now. No, everything is not good. Because since the sentencing, there have been other incidents of police violence against African American and people of color. So the verdict, if anything, is the beginning of a process to overhaul and re-examine policing in America.
You know, I think if we deny that dynamic, we're kidding ourselves. Well, we're just kidding ourselves. We have to stop kidding ourselves on a whole bunch of things. But there was, ironically, this again, this is a couple of weeks ago conversation, and the Attorney General just in the recent news cycle came down with some charges against a Pawtucket police officer. Those are white kids.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm really unhappy with conversations that reach for anecdotes, as opposed to the ones that talk about, to use the cliche, I guess, the systemic problems that exist.
Right.
But it does go to show that relationships with police in general right now need to be reviewed, honed, and reformed. And I'm very concerned, and I've been talking on the radio about this a lot, about the industry of law enforcement. because it seems to me that it's at an all-time public relations low,
Yes.
which is only going to swirl the toilet bowl in the wrong direction in terms of poor applications, poor talent, poor performance, poor.
Well, one of the things that we have to deal with also is dealing with the history of policing in America. You know, policing in America was really begun as an effort to manage and control African Americans who were enslaved in this country. Citizens patrols, and so on, vigilante groups and things like that. They became more organized, but their history didn't change. I think we have to do a whole reevaluation of that relationship between the police and the community.
But we're not suggesting that in countries where the population is exclusively or predominantly black that they don't have police.
I am not anti-police. Me personally, I am not anti-police. I'm anti-police abuse.
Everybody's got to. Everybody's got to agree to that concept.
But
I guess you have to define abuse.
The fact of the matter is, everybody doesn't agree with the concept that police can and do abuse their responsibilities and power at times, disproportionately against poor people and people of color, disproportionately. So we have to start the conversation at the point of where we are right now, and take a historical look at it and say, okay, it's been this way for over 300 years, really. And from the beginning of this country till now, the policies and practices of policing have been flawed at best. Okay, accept that, deal with that, review it, check it out, validate it, all of those things. But then ask the question, where are we right now? Why in 2021, if I see two policemen walking down the street on a beautiful day, coming toward me, I don't feel safer? I instinctively go into a protective mode. Now, there's something wrong there. Now, is it me? Is it history? Is it the police? You know.
Answer that.
I think it's all of the above. I don't want to feel that way. The policemen don't want to feel that way, I hope. But we both, at some point, I know when we both recognize there's an issue here. We haven't said anything to each other.
Well, again, this is a show that could go an hour on its own. I want to talk about critical race theory for a little bit, because these conversations dovetail. But I will tell you this. In terms of the phone traffic on a radio show, which is not necessarily indicative of the pulse of the world and the country or the community, but sometimes it is. I'm thankful that since the George Floyd tragedy, the loss of life, the Chauvin verdict, that the ratio of people who die on my show and do the yeah, but if he hadn't just, yeah, but if he hadn't resisted, is much, much, much lower, thankfully. And that is hardly a bar that we should celebrate, I understand, but I'm telling you, my friend, it's better. So there is at least some absolute point of unacceptance.
But also, we have to deal with the fact that the beginning of change begins with conversation, and we haven't been having these conversations. We as a country have not been having these conversations. We wanted to line up behind the blue wall or against the blue wall. And the fact that there's a wall there at all is the problem.
All right. When we come back, there's a lot of consternation in the schools over this critical race theory. What is it? And what do we do about it? Next. Welcome back in. Ricardo Pitts-Wiley is the co-founder of the Mixed Magic Theater in Pawtucket, a place that if you've never been to for a production, you've missed. So, not unlike Dell's and the funny hot dogs that we like around here, it's a staple. In the meantime, and I'm sorry that I don't have any background story for you on this because it wasn't what the plan was, but it is now the conversation that is happening in the schools. And again, if you're watching this, well, as you're watching this, we had this conversation 2 weeks ago in a pre-recorded conversation. The day that Ricardo and I are speaking, the American Federation of Teachers President Frank Flynn put out a statement more or less defending critical race theory as legitimate exercise in the schools. Look, we got to do a better job in history. We got to do a better job in talking about equity. We got to do a better job. Here's the thing. There's a runaway bunch of theories, because the disinformation train just keeps moving, about what critical race theory either is or what the new adaptation of it is. Is it the 1970s college professor originated type of concept that more or less suggests that white America is a bad actor? Is there a nuance of that can be explained? My point has been, because I know you're going to run on this, and I wrote about this in the Valley Breeze column a few weeks ago, I just want it explained. I think taxpayers have a right to know, not unlike curriculum changes in math and English, what their kids are being taught. We should have an open conversation about it, and if let the chips fall where they may. But right now, it's like a bunch of people are arguing about things that they really don't have any common ground agreement exists. So tell me what you think it is.
Well, first of all the information does exist. There's one of the problematic words, if we can go just with semantics, is theory. That this is somehow a proposed theory, a unvalidated source of
so do we change the moniker? Is this a branding problem?
No,
this is what I'm asking about.
Well, branding has something to do with it, but there's part of critical race theory challenges the idea that I will tell, if I am the writer of history very often, I will tell the story the way I need to tell it in order to continue to be the dominant culture. I will tell the dominant culture story. When even if it's not true, I will tell a story that supports my claim to be to be the dominant culture. Well, everything that is being in the 1619 Project that is suggested is saying, no, don't just tell your story, your history, tell the truth. It is not your history. It is a question of the truth or not the truth.
Who doesn't want to hear the truth?
Everybody.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Look, a lot of people don't, but not everybody.
Well,
I mean, you're telling me that I don't want to hear the truth? I mean, come on, man. You know me. I want to hear the truth.
You know, there's
I feel like we're a few good men.
A few good men where Nicholas's character says, you can't handle the truth.
I can handle the truth.
Well, but you know what? I believe that about America. But there are people who do not believe that America can handle the truth. I believe America can handle the truth.
Is there a way to describe the truth in a single paragraph without you giving me your poetic alliteration? And I say that with respect. You know what I'm talking about. I want this to be something that is digestible.
The facts of what happened is the truth. The facts of what happened is the truth. And
what happened about what beginning when?
Well, you can only start at the beginning.
Of time?
Let's just deal with the beginning of this country.
Fine.
Okay, let's just deal with, did this sequence of events unfold the way that you reported it? That is the question. Did this sequence of events unfold the way you reported it, or did you report it in a way that absolved you of any blame, or made you look, you created a mythology about who and what you are? And a lot of it is about myth. Growing up, I was taught that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, that George Washington could never tell a lie, that he could throw a 50-cent piece across the Potomac River, that I can go on and on and on. Okay. That's a mythology that was created to make me believe that George Washington and all people like him were superior and could do things superior to anything that I could hope to do.
So what's Abraham Lincoln's role?
Well, Abraham Lincoln presented an idea, the Emancipation Proclamation, that essentially did one thing. It freed slaves in a foreign country. But what it did do was open up the door for 250,000 African American soldiers to join the Union ranks, and that tipped the war.
So you think it was a military strategy?
It turned out to be a military strategy.
Was it the objective at the beginning to be a military strategy?
I think he recognized that slavery was going to be the undoing of the country, of the Union. He knew it was something that was going to poison the water for a long time. He recognized that, and he was right. But he was also willing to allow Africans enslaved in this country to be enslaved for another 100 years if that's what it took to save the Union. So he was willing to sacrifice my people, my history, for the sake of the Union. Well, John Brown and others said, well, you know, the only way that this problem is going to be solved is if there's a fight. And there's going to be a fight on Tuesday or a fight on Wednesday, but there's going to be a fight. Well, John Brown said it's going to happen on Tuesday. And at Harper's Ferry, it kicked it off. It was a year before the actual war started, but it was the course was set. Lincoln did not want that to happen. He would have been willing to allow things to go for a longer period of time. But once the die was cast, he had to pick a side.
Okay, so look, if we can't deal with, first of all, in terms of quality control, meaning informed reform of historical teaching all the way down through the school systems, that's a monumental task, but we got to start it. I get it. But here's the thing. If there's anybody in this audience right now who is suggesting to themselves or to the screen that you don't want the truth, I don't know where to start with you. But when we come back, the conversation has got to be about whether or not the assumptions going forward by the people who don't want to hear this are correct. Stay with us. Look, when it comes to racial conversation in this country, we're at an all-time renewed tension. But my friend Ricardo Pitts-Wiley, let me ask you this, when, of course, we've got 4 minutes to figure this out, right?
Ooh, that's enough time.
Yeah. Who would argue that we have to make sure that the history we teach is the history that's correct? Too few people should, I hope, but if there are, again, there's nothing we can do about it here. What people who are petitioning and making public records requests and drilling the school systems over right now, is they're worried and have caught on to a phenomenon of either myth or an out of control rumor that teachers are suggesting that white America is a continued oppressor, that there's a white supremacist mindset that exists out there, that kids are being introduced into racial conversations way too early for their well-being, whether they're white or black. These kinds of things are what parents are trying to figure out as they grapple with their own thoughts on race. So tell me what you think. What would you say in front of a school committee meeting to the person that says, this is terrible for our kids and you have no right to put this stuff in their heads?
Well, first of all, I push back against the idea that it's too early. In the kindergarten, in the first grade, George Washington cut down the cherry tree and admitted his guilt and said, I cannot tell a lie.
What would you substitute for the kid in kindergarten?
The truth.
About?
That George Washington led the American revolutionary groups against the British and helped to overcome them and became the first president of the United States. That's it. I'm good with that. I don't need to be told a lie about throwing a coin over the Potomac.
Again, that is setting the record straight, and reasonable people shouldn't argue that.
But it also at the same time I was told that the only history I have in this country is a slave history. I was taught that. So that's wrong too. So the truth, which was written by the same people who recorded the lies sometimes, they knew they were telling a lie. Let's go to Texas for an example. What happened at the Alamo? Texas kids are being taught as young kids that it had nothing to do with slavery. It did have something to do with slavery. That Jim Bowie and David Crockett and all these people were some heroic figures that defended the Constitution and defended the rights of the America. Not true at all. Not true at all. But you know, but I was taught a song at 6 years old. Davy Crockett, King on the Wild Frontier.
Yeah, we have a
that's not true.
We have a culture of hero worship that has been around for a long time, and there's no doubt that there's a level of manipulation.
But hero worship also is part of an oppressive white supremacist ideology that says, in order for me to maintain my status, I have to create a mythology about myself that not only elevates me, but denigrates you. That's truth. That you can go back through any documents of history and American culture and history, and you can find evidence of what I'm talking about.
Ricardo, we have a minute. People want to start fresh.
You can't start fresh unless you deal
I'm talking,
with
I know,
the seed that was planted.
I understand, but that's the instinct. People want to start fresh. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the work. They want to start fresh, and that's where we are right now, because they don't want their little 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds to be taught that they are part of a white supremacist culture going forward. They don't want that. So what do we do about that in 30 seconds?
Then what do they want taught? That's the question. What do they want taught? Do they want the truth taught, or do they want a lie that supports their idea of themselves taught?
We'll leave the question there. Honestly, I'll have you on the radio soon to keep talking about it. Thank you, my friend. Sometimes you have to leave the show on a rhetorical level. Final word when we come back. You know, there's a cliche that everybody uses to wrap up conversations like this, and that is, we have to continue the dialogue. If it was ever more true, I don't know when, who, how. Whether you're ready to petition a school committee to yell stop, or whether you want the whole history of America to be rewritten, can you just listen to the other folk for just a minute? Can we start there? That's it.